I yield back my time.
Thank you very much. The chair will now recognize the chair of the full committee, Ms. Rodgers, for a 5-minute opening statement, but I'm sure Ms. Rodgers will acknowledge before the clock starts that long before Big Pharma ever had a chance to read this bill, I called it unconstitutional. Chairman Rodgers.
I do remember that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In many ways, this hearing feels like deja vu. Just last Congress, we repeatedly warned the Democrats that their drug pricing control scheme was going to do immense harm to patients by crushing drug innovation. Earlier this month, President Biden named the first 10 drugs that will be subjected to CMS's price controls in a big celebration at the White House. However, in the months and weeks leading up to President Biden's announcement, we saw a steady stream of terrible news for patients in need of hope. One after another, company after company started to issue announcements that began, "We're discontinuing phase 1 trials for a promising cancer drug. We will not launch a phase 3 trial for a drug to treat Stargardt disease. We are now carefully considering whether to seek a second rare disease indication. We will delay our launch. We will not be seeking a second indication. We are abandoning further investigation." And these announcements go on and on. We've cataloged dozens such announcements since the IRA's passage, and with the list of the first 10 drugs finally out, there's certain to be more. Each one of these doleful announcements represents a window of hope closing. Hope for many patients, families, and caregivers. Americans rightfully expect to have the earliest possible access to the most effective innovation and treatments and cures. We are a country of believers, and American biomedical innovation gives people battling a disease or illness a fighting chance at life. This was the greatest bipartisan balance achieved by Hatch-Waxman, a framework that provided incentives to make massive private sector investments in research and development while allowing for competition to drive down prices after a drug has been on the market. Was it perfect? Of course not. Are there bad actors who abused patent protections and gamed the system? Absolutely. But it did ensure that Americans got cutting-edge treatments and cures, sometimes years before people in other developed countries that have government price controls. I am deeply concerned that because of the so-called Innovation Reduction Act, the American people will not have the same fighting chance for a host of serious diseases. Instead, they will join people in so many other countries, like the UK and Canada, where unelected bureaucrats, not cutting-edge, science-backed with entrepreneurial innovation, dictate the value of new cures. And that's why I'm looking forward to hearing from patient advocates and caregivers like Mr. Crowley, Mr. John Shirtecki, individuals who are on the front lines. Thank you for being here. And from people like Dr. Potts, who have dedicated their lives to not just researching cancer, but fighting it. There's going to be a successful cancer moonshot. It's not going to be done by the National Institutes of Health or ARPA-H alone. A bulk of the work is going to be done by private industry and the innovators in private industry, people like Dr. Potts, who've spent years and billions of dollars translating basic research into life-saving treatments. So this brings me back to why this hearing is so important. Last Congress, with a bipartisan vote, this committee stopped Speaker Pelosi's government price controls in H.R. 3. And then the so-called Inflation Reduction Act was passed on a party line vote through budget reconciliation. It short-circuited the hard bipartisan work of lowering drug prices for all Americans while preserving innovation. And instead, Democrats passed the buck to Secretary of HHS and CMS and gave bureaucrats virtually unlimited discretion to dictate the price of a negotiation-eligible drug. Congress's failure to do the hard work has created a whole host of consequences. As Chairman Griffith mentioned, the drug price negotiation program is currently being challenged in court on constitutional grounds. We will see what the courts have to say, but I share Chairman Griffith's belief that, at least in part, this legislation will be found to be unconstitutional. And when that happens, This committee will stand ready to do the hard work of building bipartisan solutions that lower drug prices without sacrificing innovation and America's biomedical edge. I thank the witnesses for being here. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Pallone, for his 5-minute